Hello, I'm James Henry, and this is The Message.
The Message.
We are in the middle of we've got 2 more weeks. I don't know if you count that in the middle. It's kind of between the beginning and the end, but we're somewhere in the middle of the Fruits of the Spirit series. And we're talking a little bit about how fruit grows in us and maybe some signs of what it looks like when you have the fruit, when you're bearing the fruit. And today we come to faithfulness. Faithfulness is an opportunity for us to kind of be in it for the long haul, to go the distance, if you will. I need to believe something extraordinary is possible. I need to believe that. And I do believe it, actually, that something extraordinary is possible. Now, I think as human beings, we all want to believe that something extraordinary is possible at every twist and turn in our lives. And part of the way that we believe that, though, is to leap sometimes from thing to thing to thing in our life, from job to job to job, imagining the next one, that's gonna be it. The next experience, that's gonna be it. The next event, that's gonna be it. Adrenaline junkies go from one major event to the next, imagining more and more and more adrenaline is all they need, and it becomes addictive, imagining that short-term fixes are ever going to fix that which we long for within us, that extraordinary, that amazing thing. And perhaps we need to redefine what extraordinary really is. Because if extraordinary is jumping from thing to thing to thing as quickly as possible to keep ourselves excited and on edge, then perhaps we've lost track of what's truly extraordinary in life, which is the steadfastness, the faithfulness that holds us over the long haul. You know, the story of the Bible is that God's faithfulness never gives up on you, no matter how ugly you are to each other, or to me, or to God. God does not give up on you. God's faithfulness remains forever. Over and over again, one of the most powerful things that the Bible says about God is that God is faithful. Even when God's covenant people run away from Him, do anything but love Him back, God never gives up, never surrenders. God keeps holding on for the long haul. God does not give up on you. God does not give up on me. And believe me, I've given God plenty of opportunities in my lifetime to give up on me. Now, of course, one of the ways I've found in my own life to avoid faithfulness with God is to get bored with my relationship with God. Can you imagine a boring relationship with God? Perhaps you can. Perhaps you have one. Perhaps you are on the edge. But for the longest periods in time in my life, you know, right when you say yes to God, I'll tell you, it's like an all-time high. At least it was for me. I said yes to God and whoop, I was on the cloud. But then over time, it's kind of like any relationship, any sense of connection. Over time, it becomes mundane and everyday, and you keep doing the same things over and over again and saying the same things over and over again and hearing the same things over and over again. Just hang in there. Just be faithful. Just get up another day and roll out of bed. You hear all of that, and it gets kind of everyday. And we are not an everyday kind of people. Everyday kinds of drives us over the edge. But maybe it's the everyday that really... So what I did is, you know, I would get really intense with God for a while and just dive in like 3 hours a day, spending time, crazy time. And then I'd lose interest. So I'd wander around. I'd go through the motions. I'd talk about it on a Sunday morning like I knew something because I knew about something. I've spent years studying the Bible. You know, I have an undergraduate degree in religious studies. I grew up in Sunday school. I have a master's degree. In fact, I had to get extra hours for my master's degree because I started in one theological seminary and they'd only transfer half of my credits to go to the other one when I finished it. So I had to get almost 120 hours when only 90 was necessary. So I know a lot about God, a lot. You know, a lot of people can come to me and ask me really good questions about the Bible, and I can usually give them an answer. You can ask me questions about the most mundane, stupid things in life too, because I remember everything I ever watched on the stinking Discovery Channel. So Hannah and I had this wonderful conversation one day. We were taking a long walk in the woods. Hannah's my daughter, and she said, Dad, you know, because she asked me a question about some plant that we passed, and of course, the Discovery Channel. What did it do? It gave me an answer. So I gave it to her, and she said, Dad, someday, you know, when I get married and have kids, I'm not going to be able to answer all these questions. How is it going to be that my children will be? I said, Hannah, the truth is sometimes there are lots of answers to any question. You can give the factual answer to what flower is that on the side of the thing, or why do these grow this way, or which one of these is poison ivy. You can give lots of poison. And poison ivy, by the way, that's a good one to know. Just a heads up, if you don't know anything else about plants, watch out for poison ivy. She said, what about, and I said, there are lots of ways to answer questions when somebody asks. In fact, giving somebody the factual answer straight off the top of your head may not be the best answer at all. Maybe the best answer is to say, you know what, there are a lot of good places we can figure that out. Let's remember what this looks like when we get home. We can look it up on the internet. We can pull out a book about flowers. We can figure it out ourselves. Or we can ask the question, does it really matter which flower it is as long as it's beautiful? The truth is, knowing lots of facts, knowing about stuff is not always what's most important. It's really the knowing. And part of the knowing is hanging in there. So I had serial highs with God. I would say yes to God, be on the high for 9 months, and then just kind of ignore God for a couple of years. And then when I said yes again, I was back on the high for a short period of time until it became mediocre. And then I would just kind of ignore God for a while. And why do you think that? This is the biblical kind of message. If you read the Hebrew Bible, it's all about the Israelites are really faithful and God's really on their side. And then they fall away. They get bored with God, so they walk away. God never gives up or surrenders on you, but we sure give up and surrender on God. What if the way that we will experience the most extraordinary pieces of our lives is to not give up? You know, I periodically get a chance to do something really cool, and that's drive down and visit my parents. And they're both still alive. Dad's 86 and Mom's 80. They're probably deeply disturbed. They're not watching online right now, but they always watch on Sunday afternoon. So they will see that I named your ages, Mom and Dad. They have been married since 1954. Almost 62 years ago, what is this, 2015? Okay, almost 61 years ago, June the 12th, will make 61 years that they have been together. Now, sometimes I sit with them and they pick at each other, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, is this the future for Linda and I when I'm 83 and she's 80? Is this what's coming? Is this what faithfulness is going to look like? But see, then there are these other times where they just kind of, Dad insisted when he retired, he makes Mom a hot lunch every day. Every day. And when she was on Weight Watchers, you know, trying to lose some weight, Dad measured it every day. He would get out the chicken breast or whatever they were having, and he would measure it and figure out how many points were and tell Mom how many points were in it so she could keep track of all of that. And she did it not just once. He did it not just once, but over the long haul. And Mom is always kind of looking after Dad too. They kind of care for each other and look. And it's got to be, after 61 years, boring sometimes. Let's just be honest. I've been married to Linda for 23 years. She's bored with me all the time, bored to tears. We were driving yesterday we're driving to a winery. She got a Groupon for us, and so we went to this winery out in the middle of southern Maryland somewhere. We passed Chesapeake Beach. So, Kim, if you're watching, we passed near you somewhere. In any case, we went to this winery, and on the way, I was just noting she was driving, so I was noting all of these things. And she's somewhere, after we crossed it, this is how far we got. As soon as we crossed the bridge, the Wilson Bridge, she said to me, is this going to be a Ronning commentary for the rest of the way? Are you going to tell me everything you learned on Science Friday yesterday on NPR, and then about all the cars that you see, and about new gadgets, and about... So she said, we could talk about something else. It's like, okay, we'll talk about something else, whatever. But you think it would just be wonderful to live with me, I'm sure. 23 years she's done it, 23 and a half years she's done that. It's not always exciting. It's not always a mountaintop experience. Everything you do in your life is not going to be, woo! Some things are just going to be the things you have to do. Maybe some of you are like CPA people, and when it's time to do your taxes, you are just like, woot, woot, I have got Schedule A and B and C and D, and I get to file SE and all of these, woo! I'm going to get to spend the next 5 days filling out these forms. This is the greatest thing God ever made. And many of you, if you're more like me, is like, really? It's time to do those things again? And we have to do them early every year because we have to do all that financial aid dance for Hannah and Josh to be in college. Some things you just do. Some things, every morning, there are mornings I don't want to roll out of bed. I don't have to be anywhere quite as quick as Linda does. I'd like to just stay in bed. But because I love my wife, I faithfully get out of bed and make her oatmeal. There are days when she knows I need my rest and she says, don't get up tomorrow and fix oatmeal. Stay in bed. Faithfulness is the long haul, something that you'll never discover if you don't hang in for some things. You will never discover. In my mind, there are like three levels of friendship, of work that we go through. First, there's all the new freshness. All the new things you're learning about each other and memorizing and discovering. And the same thing is true about your job. All the new things, and each new thing is kind of a break-in period. You're learning, every time you turn around, you're learning something. It's exciting. Or maybe it's not if you don't really like your job, but you're getting to that second level, competence. Now, for many of us, that's enough. I'm competent now. I can do this. It's time for me to look for something else that's exciting. But if you just hang on for that third piece, and I don't know what you'd label it, but it's kind of that deeper kind of sense of competence where it becomes almost second nature. Then you start to notice the little pieces. You start to realize where you could tweak something and make it better. Because before, it was all you could do to get it done. Competence just means, okay, I know that I've got to fill out this form, flip the page, okay, that says do this. Put it in the box, and eventually you get to the place where you're noticing all the little details and all the pieces, and you don't need the book anymore to tell you how to fill out the form. And eventually you realize, I don't even need the form. It says I'm only supposed to turn it in once a week. I don't have to turn it in every day. I don't have to be filling it out. You eventually begin to find ways to streamline, but the only way that happens is if you remain faithful long enough to become more than competent. There are days when I feel barely competent to be married to Linda Patterson. There are days. I'm sure there are days when she feels the same way. It's a pretty simple life, if you're married to me. Be bored for hours and hours and then sleep. And then the next day begins again. Hope to go off to work, so James is off doing something else. I don't know. She'd probably describe it differently, probably much more generously after 23 and a half years. You see, there's something about getting past competence that many of us don't ever do. And I want to invite you, if faithfulness is this fruit that grows in our relationship with God, I want to invite you to something beyond competence in God. Competence in your relationship with God. And that requires that you be willing to invest something in it. That's the challenge, isn't it? It's so easy to know that God loves you and that God will never give up on you. So what else do you have left to do? God loves me. God never give up on me. So even if I'm a total jerk, idiot, mean guy, God will love me anyway. Yeah, but what would it be like if God loved you and you engaged that love back? Have you ever had unrequited love when you love somebody and they just didn't love you back? It's not an exciting experience. I've had it many times in my life. Many, many, many times. Too many to count. But not recently. Not recently. Fortunately, my love is quite requited. I think. Is that the appropriate word? But you know what it's like to be loved and not to love and not to be loved back? There's kind of an emptiness. Now you think God's the God of the universe. God can do it anyway. God won't give up on me. You're right. God won't give up on you. You're right. But imagine what it might be like for God, the God who is always faithful, if you were just a little bit faithful back. What would it be like when you got up in the morning if you just said, thanks, God, for another day? What would it be like in the moments of your life? You're not going to get to a place where you're praying 3 hours, starting at, from 0 to 3 hours. I've talked about this before. If we all went out right now and decided we're going to run a marathon, there are not many of us who are going to make it. Today, if we decided we're going to do it 6 months from now, I can think of lots of you probably could build up yourself into shape. But you don't start at 26.2 miles. You start walking, getting up out of your seat. What would it take? Well, James, I can't find 15 minutes of my day to talk to God. Can you find 5? Can you find 5? And can you make a vow to yourself that no matter what, you are going to talk to God for 5 minutes? Or maybe you don't want to talk to God. Maybe you just want to listen for God. Maybe you're going to split that time. 2.5 minutes talking to God. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. And then 2.5 minutes sitting in silence listening for God. You got to start somewhere. I'll tell you, 2.5 minutes won't be enough. 20 minutes may not be enough. But you've got to start somewhere. And that's where faithfulness begins. It begins in that beginning honeymoon period, I think they want to call it. I read an article, written by scientists about the whole hormonal falling in love kind of thing. And the whole reason that we get on that hormonal honeymoon period in our lives is because otherwise we would not stay with another person for longer than 5 minutes. Because they would irritate the living crud out of us. That what the honeymoon period allows us to do is stay with the person long enough that it becomes habitual, and then we can hang in there. All right, I've woken up with you for 9 months. I guess 9 months and 1 day I can make it. I'm not feeling that, that hormonal jump, but we've committed to something, and it's not so bad. So let yourself get past the place where you've said yes and the excitement is new and fresh. Let yourself get to a place where you're competent enough to feel comfortable talking to God and listening to God. You don't have to wait for somebody who's a professional. In the 20th century, clergy did this really stupid thing by telling people that the only people who could visit people in the hospital were clergy people because we're professionals. The only people that could pray with somebody, clergy people, because we're professionals. We've been trained. I've heard some clergy people pray, including myself. We're trained all right, but I'm not sure we know what we're saying. You begin to think you got to leave it to the professionals. This is not, stunt driving. Relationship with God is something for you in your everyday lives. Yes, God wants to be faithful to you. God already is and never gives up on you, but don't you want to be faithful back? Don't you want to try and see what it looks like? Try talking to God on your own, not waiting for James to say some cool prayer. We've finally gotten to a place in a couple of the places I go and pray, they don't ask me to pray. They jump right in. James, I'm going to pray now. Really? You don't think I pray very well? See? Don't you want to hear the professional? No, I want to actually talk to God for myself. And that's what you need. Talk to God for yourself. Listen to God for yourself. Read the Bible for yourself. Don't understand it and you have a real question? Call me up. Last night I got a computer call at 9 o'clock last night. Someone said, you're the person I think who knows more about computers than anybody else I know. You really don't know anybody, do you? It was Danielle, a longtime member at St. James. I need to ask you a question about malware. Oh yeah, I design it all the time there, Danielle, and I've probably infected your computer and everyone else I know. No. So, it was a fine question. It was a fine question, but any question you have, you ought to be able to ask. And ask yourself. Ask God. That's the best way. Enter into prayer and say, God, why am I angry all the time? Where does this anger come from? Where does this frustration with life come from? Where does this struggle come from? And if you hang with it long enough, maybe God will answer it for you. Maybe you'll discover the answer inside yourself or outside yourself. And you'll find healing and hope. The only way to do it, though, it's a long haul thing. It's faithfulness. I want to believe that something extraordinary is possible. And it's not just jumping. It's not just jumping from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's something more than that. It's hanging with it for the long haul. So do it. Do it. Some reminders. Today, if you have a significant person in your life, a child, a parent, a friend, a spouse, a significant other of any kind, do something for them today as a way of being faithful in that relationship. Something unexpected. No, this is not a random act of kindness from 3 weeks ago. Do something unexpected that might show your faithfulness to the relationship. Let this be an opportunity for you to reach out beyond yourself. Maybe there's nobody super significant in your life. We'll call somebody just significant instead of super significant. Or slightly less than significant, but you're hoping will be significant someday. You get the answer. You get it. Do something today. And then, when you get up tomorrow, do something tomorrow. And then, Tuesday, guess what? Do something Tuesday. And you know what? After a while, what happens? You move beyond competence to faithfulness. That's, I'm convinced, where extraordinary lies. So go look for extraordinary.